My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most common questions people ask when life becomes heavy is this: if everything is already written, then what is the point of making dua? Can dua really change destiny? This question often comes from pain. It comes from someone who has tried, someone who has cried, someone who has begged Allah in the depth of the night and yet feels nothing has changed. And that is exactly why we must talk about it with clarity, mercy and hope. In Islam, we believe in destiny. We believe that Allah knows everything, the past, the present and the future. Nothing surprises him. But destiny is not an excuse for hopelessness. Destiny is a system created by the most merciful, not a trap designed to break us. Allah, in His wisdom, has written two types of destiny. One that is fixed by His ultimate knowledge and another that is conditional, connected to your actions, your choices, and yes, your dua. This is why the Prophet taught us that nothing repels destiny except dua. That statement alone should shake our hearts awake. Dua is not just asking. Dua is worship. Dua is admitting weakness. Dua is saying, Ya Allah, I cannot do this without you. And Allah loves to hear that. Allah loves when His servant raises their hands, not because they deserve, but because they trust. Sometimes Allah changes the situation because of your dua. Sometimes He removes a calamity you never even knew was coming. And sometimes, and this is the hardest part, He delays the answer because He wants to give you something better, or He wants to raise your rank, or He wants to hear your voice again and again. My dear brothers and sisters, delay is not rejection. Silence does not mean Allah is absent. When a child cries, the mother does not always respond instantly. Not because she doesn't care, but because she knows what is best. And Allah's mercy is far greater than any parent's mercy. Look at the prophets. They made dua for years, some for decades, some until their hair turned white. Yet they never said, what's the point? They understood that dua itself was already a gift. But we must also look at ourselves. Are we sincere? Are we patient? Are we asking while obeying Allah? Or are we asking while walking away from Him? Dua is powerful, but it must come with humility, halal earnings, and trust in Allah's plan. And even if your dua is never answered in the way you imagined, wallahi, you have not lost. Either Allah gives you what you asked for, delays it, replaces it with something better, or saves it for the day you will need it the most. So never stop making dua. Make dua when you are broken. Make dua when you are happy. Make dua when you have no words and only tears. Because the moment you stop making dua is the moment you start relying only on yourself. And that is the real loss. Raise your hands, whisper your pain, trust your Lord. Because yes, dua can change destiny, but more importantly, dua can change you. And when you change, everything else follows by the permission of Allah. When we speak about destiny in Islam, we are speaking about something deeply connected to the knowledge, wisdom and mercy of Allah. Destiny or Qadr is not a dark or frightening concept meant to paralyze us. Rather, it is a source of comfort for the believer when it is understood correctly. Allah knows everything. What has happened, what is happening, and what will happen. His knowledge is perfect, complete and unlimited. Nothing escapes Him, not even the thoughts hidden in your heart. This belief gives peace because it reminds us that our lives are not random and our struggles are not meaningless. However, many people misunderstand destiny and assume that if everything is written, then human effort, choice, and dua have no value. This is not the Islamic understanding. Allah created us with free will and the ability to choose. And He commanded us to act, to strive, to pray, and to rely on Him. If destiny meant that our actions were irrelevant, Allah would not have instructed us to work, to repent, to improve, and to seek His help. The very fact that we are accountable shows that our choices matter. Destiny operates on levels. There is the ultimate knowledge of Allah that will never change, because Allah already knows the outcome of everything. But within that divine knowledge, Allah has placed systems, causes, and conditions. Angels are commanded to write aspects of destiny, and those writings can change based on Allah's permission. This is why certain decrees are connected to actions, such as maintaining family ties, giving charity, seeking forgiveness, and making dua. These actions are themselves part of destiny, and they influence what unfolds in our lives. Think of destiny not as a locked door, but as a path with many turns. Allah knows every turn, but you are still walking the path. You still decide whether you move forward, pause, or turn back. You still choose whether you raise your hands in dua or remain silent. And Allah in His mercy has allowed certain outcomes to be connected to those choices. This is why the Prophet encouraged effort alongside trust in Allah. He taught us to tie our camel and then rely on Allah, not to abandon responsibility in the name of destiny. Understanding destiny also protects the heart from arrogance and despair. When something good happens, we do not become proud because we know it came from Allah. And when something painful happens, we do not collapse because we know Allah allowed it with wisdom. Destiny teaches balance. It teaches us to work hard while remaining humble and to accept outcomes while continuing to hope. Some people only remember destiny when things go wrong. They say it was written, but they forget destiny when making choices. Islam does not teach us to use destiny as an excuse for laziness or sin. If that were the case, accountability would be meaningless. Destiny is something we believe in, but we live our lives as people who are responsible, aware, and conscious of Allah. When destiny is understood properly, it pushes a believer closer to Allah, not further away. It encourages dua because we know Allah is capable of changing situations. It encourages patience because we know nothing is wasted. And it encourages effort because we know Allah loves those who strive while placing their trust in Him. So destiny is not a wall you crash into. It is a framework within which you live, act, pray, and grow. And once this understanding settles in the heart, a believer stops asking, what's the point? And starts saying, Ya Allah, guide me, strengthen me, and grant me what T is best, knowing that Allah's plan is always rooted in mercy and wisdom. When we talk about dua, we are not talking about a last resort or a backup plan used only when everything else fails. Dua is at the heart of a believer's relationship with Allah. It is a direct connection with the one who created you, who knows your struggles before you speak and who understands your pain even when you cannot put it into words. Dua is not simply asking for things. It is an act of worship that reflects humility, dependence, and deep trust in Allah. The Prophet described dua as the essence of worship because it strips a person of pride. When you make dua, you are admitting that you are weak and that Allah is powerful, that you are limited and Allah is unlimited. In a world that constantly teaches self-reliance, Islam teaches reliance on Allah. Dua reminds the heart that no matter how capable we think we are, everything ultimately depends on Allah's permission. One of the most beautiful aspects of dua is that there are no barriers. You do not need a special place, a specific language or perfect words. Allah hears the whisper of the heart just as He hears the loudest cry. You can make dua while walking, while driving, while lying in bed at night with tears in your eyes. Allah is closer to you than you realize, and He loves when His servant turns to Him, especially in moments of vulnerability. Dua also transforms hardship into worship. Pain by itself can crush a person, but pain that is taken to Allah through dua becomes a source of reward and closeness to Him. When a believer raises their hands and says, Ya Allah, you see what I'm going through, that moment is never waste. Even if the situation does not change immediately, the heart changes. It softens, it strengthens. It finds peace in knowing that Allah is aware. Sometimes people feel discouraged because they think their du'as are not good enough, or that they are asking for too much, or that Allah may be tired of hearing the same request again and again. But Allah is not like humans. He does not get annoyed by repetition. In fact, He loves persistence. Repeating a dua is a sign of hope, and hope is beloved to Allah. The only dangerous moment is when a person stops making dua altogether, because that reflects a heart that has lost expectation from Allah. Dua also teaches patience and trust. You ask and then you wait, not with anger or entitlement, but with faith. You understand that Allah knows what you do not know. You may ask for something believing it is good for you, while Allah in His mercy protects you from it. Or you may ask for something and Allah delays it to the perfect moment when it will benefit you the most. This waiting is not passive. It is an act of worship filled with hope. Another powerful reality of dua is that Allah responds in different ways. Sometimes He gives exactly what is asked. Sometimes He removes a difficulty instead. Sometimes He replaces it with something better. And sometimes He saves the reward of that dua for the day when you will wish you had more. No sincere dua is ever ignored. It is always answered, just not always in the way we expect. Dua keeps the believer spiritually alive. It prevents the heart from becoming hard and distant. It reminds us that we are never alone, no matter how heavy life feels. When everything else is uncertain, dua remains constant. It is a reminder that Allah's door is always open, His mercy is always near, and His generosity has no limits. And for the believer, that knowledge alone is enough to keep going, no matter how long the road may seem. One of the most comforting truths in Islam is that Allah has given the believer a tool that is powerful enough to affect what is meant to happen in their life. And that tool is dua. Many people struggle with this idea because they think destiny is fixed in every detail and nothing can be altered. But Islam teaches us that Allah, in His mercy, has connected certain outcomes to certain actions. And among the greatest of those actions is turning to Him sincerely in dua. The Prophet taught us clearly that dua has the ability to repel harm and bring benefit by the permission of Allah. This means that there are matters written to occur, but Allah has also written that if His servant makes dua, that outcome can be changed. This does not contradict destiny, rather it is part of destiny itself. Allah already knew that you would make dua and He already knew how He would respond to it. The change does not surprise Allah, but it transforms the experience of the servant. The Quran repeatedly invites us to call upon Allah with certainty and hope. Allah promises that He responds to those who call upon Him. This promise is not limited to small matters. It includes hardship, fear, illness, confusion, and moments when the heart feels completely lost. When a believer makes dua, they are not challenging destiny. They are engaging with it in the way Allah Himself has commanded. There are countless examples of this reality in the lives of the prophets and the righteous people. We see individuals facing situations that appeared impossible by human standards, yet when they turned to Allah with sincerity, everything changed. The circumstances shifted, relief came from unexpected places, and doors opened where none seemed to exist. These were not coincidences. They were responses to dua, written by Allah as part of His divine plan. Sometimes Allah changes the outcome itself. A calamity that was approaching is lifted. A difficulty that seemed inevitable is eased. A path that looked blocked suddenly opens. And sometimes Allah changes something even more profound. The strength of the heart facing the situation. Either way, dua is never ineffective. The believer may never know what was removed from their life because of a single sincere dua, but on the day of judgment, they will see the weight of it. It is also important to understand that dua does not always change destiny in the way we imagine. We often focus on the result we want, but Allah focuses on what is best for us. You may ask Allah to remove a hardship, but He may give you patience and strength that raises your rank and brings you closer to Him. You may ask for ease, but Allah may give you growth through struggle. That does not mean the dua failed. It means the response came in a form rooted in divine wisdom. The danger lies in giving up on dua because the answer did not arrive quickly. Some people say, I've been making dua for years and nothing has changed. But they do not see the unseen changes. They do not see the harm that was diverted, the sins that were forgiven, or the reward that was stored for them. Allah's generosity is far greater than our limited perspective. Dua also teaches us that no situation is final as long as Allah is involved. A diagnosis, a broken relationship, a financial crisis, or a mistake from the past does not define the end of the story. As long as the believer can raise their hands and turn to Allah, there is room for change. That hope itself is a form of mercy. So yes, by the permission of Allah, dua can change what is meant to happen. It can rewrite outcomes that were conditional, ease burdens that felt unbearable, and open doors that seemed permanently closed. But even when the external situation remains, dua reshapes the heart, strengthens faith, and connects the believer to their Lord. And that connection is in itself the greatest change a person can experience. One of the most difficult tests for a believer is making dua sincerely and then not seeing an immediate response. In those moments, the heart begins to whisper doubts. A person may start wondering whether they are being ignored, whether their du'as are falling on deaf ears, or whether Allah is displeased with them. But Islam teaches us a crucial truth that protects the heart from despair. Delay does not mean rejection. Allah is Al-Hakim, the most wise. His wisdom is perfect, even when we cannot understand it. When a believer asks for something, Allah hears every word, every sigh, and even the unspoken feelings behind the dua. Nothing is lost. But Allah responds according to His knowledge, not according to our impatience. What we see as delay is often preparation, protection, or mercy in disguise. Sometimes Allah delays the answer because the timing is not right. You may be asking for something good, but receiving it too early could harm you. Just as a child may ask for something that could hurt them, Allah out of love withholds it until the moment it becomes beneficial. The believer may not see this immediately, but later in life, they often look back and realize that the delay was a blessing they did not recognize at the time. At other times, Allah delays the answer because He wants to elevate the believer. Every moment spent waiting with patience, every tear shed in the night, every time the hands are raised again, despite exhaustion, all of it raises a person's rank. If Allah were to give everything instantly, many of us would stop turning to Him. The delay keeps the heart attached to Allah, keeps the tongue busy with remembrance, and keeps the soul alive with hope. There are also moments when Allah delays because He wants to give something better. A person may be focused on one door while Allah intends to open another that they never considered. If that first door opened immediately, the better opportunity might never come. What feels like loss is often redirection. What feels like silence is often Allah arranging things beyond our vision. The Prophet warned us not to rush our du'as by saying, I made du'a but I was not answered. This mindset turns waiting into disappointment. Instead, the believer is taught to continue asking with certainty and trust. Allah loves persistence. He loves when His servant returns again and again, not because Allah needs the du'a, but because the servant needs Allah. Delay also purifies intention. When something is postponed, the believer has time to reflect on why they are asking. Is it truly for good? Is it for the sake of Allah? Is the heart attached to the outcome or to the one who controls the outcome? These moments of waiting refine faith and strengthen reliance on Allah. Some people receive what they want quickly, but becomes a test that leads them away from Allah. Others wait, but the waiting brings them closer to Him. In the sight of Allah, success is not measured by speed or comfort, but by faith and sincerity. A delayed dua that brings a servant closer to Allah is far better than an immediate answer that leads to heedlessness. It is also important to remember that Allah always responds, but not always in the form we expect. What appears to be delay may actually be an answer taking a different shape. Protection from harm, forgiveness of sins, or reward stored for the hereafter. On the day of judgment, when believers see how much reward was given for unanswered du'as, many will wish their du'as were never answered in this world at all. So when the answer seems delayed, do not lose hope. Do not assume rejection. Keep calling upon Allah with humility and trust. Because Allah never ignores a sincere heart, and He never wastes a single dua. What He chooses to delay, He delays with wisdom. And what He chooses to give, He gives with mercy. When a believer speaks about having their dua accepted, it is important to understand that acceptance is not random. Allah is the most generous, and His mercy is vast. But He has also taught us manners and conditions that strengthen our connection with Him and make our duas more meaningful. These conditions are not barriers meant to keep us away. They are doors that draw us closer to Allah and purify our hearts in the process. The first and most important condition is sincerity. Dua must come from the heart, not just the tongue. Allah does not look at the eloquence of our words, but at the honesty behind them. A simple, broken plea filled with truth is far more beloved to Allah than long, beautiful words said without presence of heart. When a person truly believes that only Allah can help them, that sincerity itself becomes a reason for acceptance. Patience is another key condition. Many people make dua with urgency, but patience means continuing to ask without frustration or complaint. Patience does not mean weakness. It means trusting Allah even when the heart is tired. A believer understands that Allah's timing is perfect, and they remain firm in dua whether the answer seems close or far. This patience transforms waiting into worship. Trust in Allah is closely tied to patience. When you make dua, you must believe that Allah is capable of responding. Doubt weakens the spirit of dua. Trust means you ask with confidence, knowing that Allah hears you and will respond in the best way, even when the situation appears impossible. The believer's heart remains certain that Allah's power has no limits. Another essential condition is ensuring that one's sustenance and actions are halal. The Prophet warned us about a person who raises their hands in dua while their food, drink and earnings are unlawful. This does not mean such a person is beyond Allah's mercy, but it does mean that sins and haram actions can become obstacles. Repentance cleanses those barriers. When a person turns back to Allah sincerely, seeking forgiveness and trying to correct their ways, they reopen the doors of acceptance. Humility is also crucial. Dua should never be made with arrogance or entitlement. Allah owes us nothing, yet He gives us everything. When a believer makes dua while acknowledging their shortcomings and weaknesses, that humility draws Allah's mercy. Even admitting, Ya Allah, I do not deserve, but you are the most merciful, is beloved to Him. Consistency in dua is another powerful factor. Some people only make dua during hardship and disappear once things improve. Others remain connected to Allah in ease and difficulty. Allah loves consistency. When a servant regularly turns to Him, their dua becomes part of their identity, not just a reaction to pain. This consistent relationship strengthens faith and deepens reliance on Allah. It is also important to choose the right times and states for dua, such as moments of sincerity, calmness, or even brokenness. A heart that is softened by hardship is often closer to Allah than a heart distracted by comfort. Tears, humility, and quiet moments of reflection can turn ordinary du'as into powerful ones. Finally, acceptance of dua also requires submission to Allah's will. A believer asks with hope, but accepts with contentment. They understand that Allah's answer may not match their expectation, but it will always be better for their soul. This acceptance does not weaken dua, it completes it. So when a believer combines sincerity, patience, trust, halal living, humility, consistency, and contentment, their dua becomes more than a request. It becomes a bridge between them and Allah. And Allah never turns away a servant who comes to Him with a heart full of faith and trust. One of the greatest dangers to the human heart is losing hope, especially in moments of hardship and pain. Islam does not allow the believer to sink into despair, because despair suggests a misunderstanding of who Allah is. Allah introduces Himself to us as the most merciful, the most loving, the one whose mercy outweighs His anger. When a believer truly knows this, they understand that no matter how dark the situation feels, hope must remain alive. Hope in Allah is not blind optimism, it is a form of worship. It is trusting Allah's mercy even when the heart is wounded, and believing in His help even when the road seems long. The Quran reminds us again and again not to lose hope in Allah's mercy, because losing hope is not a sign of realism. It is a sign of forgetting who Allah is. A believer may feel weak, confused or exhausted, but they never believe that Allah has abandoned them. Many people think they are unworthy of Allah's mercy because of their past mistakes. Shaitan uses guilt as a weapon, whispering that it is too late, that forgiveness is no longer possible, that the door has closed. But Allah's door never closes. As long as a person is alive, the opportunity to return remains. Allah loves repentance and He loves those who turn back to Him sincerely, even if they do so repeatedly. Hope also keeps the believer moving forward. Without hope, dua becomes heavy, worship becomes empty, and life loses meaning. But when hope is alive, even pain has purpose. The believer understands that trials are not punishments by default. They can be signs of love, purification, or elevation. What matters is not the difficulty itself, but how the heart responds to it. Sometimes Allah allows hardship to remain not because He wants to hurt His servant, but because He wants to draw them closer. A person who never experienced difficulty might never truly turn to Allah. In moments of brokenness, the heart softens, the ego disappears, and sincerity grows. Hope allows the believer to see hardship as a bridge rather than a wall. Even when du'as seem unanswered and situations remain unchanged, hope reminds the believer that Allah is still working behind the scenes. The story is not over. The chapter is not finished. What you see is not all that exists. Allah's plan unfolds in ways the human mind cannot always comprehend. Trusting this unseen process is an act of deep faith. Hope also changes how a believer views the future. Instead of fearing what is to come, they place their trust in Allah's care. They understand that whatever Allah decrees will ultimately be for their good, even if it comes wrapped in difficulty. This mindset brings peace, not because life becomes easy, but because the heart becomes anchored. On the day of judgment, the believer will see how every moment of patience, every unanswered dua, every tear shed in sincerity was counted and rewarded. That realization will erase every doubt and every pain. In that moment, the believer will understand that Allah was always near, always listening, and always merciful. So never let go of hope. No matter how heavy the burden feels, no matter how long the night seems, remember that Allah's mercy is greater than every problem you face. Keep making dua, keep trusting, keep walking forward. Because a believer who holds on to hope is never truly defeated, and a heart connected to Allah is never truly alone. In conclusion, the journey of understanding dua and destiny is a journey of hope, trust, and connection with Allah. While destiny is written with perfect knowledge and wisdom, Allah has given us the beautiful gift of dua, a tool that allows us to turn to Him, seek His guidance, and change outcomes by His permission. Dua is not just asking, it is an act of worship, a reflection of humility, patience, and sincere reliance on the Most Merciful. Even when answers seem delayed or when situations remain challenging, we must never lose hope. Delay does not mean rejection, and silence does not mean Allah is absent. Every sincere plea, every tear, every moment spent turning to Allah shapes our hearts, strengthens our faith, and brings us closer to Him. By being sincere, patient, humble, and consistent, and by trusting Allah's wisdom, we open the doors for our du'as to be accepted in the best way, whether through immediate relief, delayed blessings, protection from harm, or rewards in the hereafter. Ultimately, dua transforms the believer more than it transforms circumstances. It reminds us that we are never alone, that Allah's mercy is boundless, and that hope must remain alive even in the darkest moments. So let us raise our hands, trust in Allah's plan, and never stop asking. Because through dua, hearts are strengthened, lives are guided, and destinies can be illuminated by His mercy and grace. May Allah strengthen our faith, accept our du'as, and grant us contentment with His decree. Ameen.